Hey, what's up you guys, it's Dorothy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to go into part 3 of chapter 9 of the Mothers and Daughters of the Bible Speak by Ch9 Pt3. So let's get right into this video. This video is going to contain topics of the Bible. If you do not wish to continue, I suggest you click off the video now. You have been warned. Now that her husband had safely gone, Michal could pretend that she had been on her father's side all along. David, she claimed, had threatened to kill her. It would have been an easily believable lie. Saul would likely believe the worst of the man who'd become the center of his obsessions, so David escaped and Michal was also safe, back in the palace where her deception was unknown and everyone assumed her real loyalty was to her father. Michal did not consent to participate in her father's sin of attempted murder, and thus saved him from the greater sin of actual murder. Michal saved David that night, but she also saved Saul. Politically, Michal was caught between being the daughter of the king and the wife of a presumed future king. It was not only a dangerous place to be, but also an emotionally harrowing one. Michal was torn between her father and her husband. It seems neither of them loved her in return, nor showed regard for her intrinsic value as a human being or a woman. Her father used her as a pawn in his war with David and gave her no further thought. The Bible tells us nothing of her husband's feelings for her, even though she saved his life. Just as in Esther's story, with Michal we see a daughter presented with a difficult choice, whom to follow. Esther chose to be loyal to her Jewish father instead to a pagan king, but Michal was left with what probably felt like a no-win situation. On the one hand, an evil father who was hell-bent on killing her husband, and on the other hand, a husband who didn't seem to return the love she showered on him. Unfortunately, Saul's scheming regarding his daughter's life continued. When next we hear of Michal, Saul had treated her marriage to David as though it did not exist. In fact, Saul married her off to another man. We have no indication that Saul ever sought Michal's feelings on the matter. The Bible tells us simply Saul had given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to Pt3, son of Laish, who was from Galib. 1 Samuel 25:44. David had also taken a new wife, 2 of them in fact, while in hiding with his men in the wilderness, slowly gathering more forces loyal to him. David married Abigail, widow of the wealthy Nabal, as well as Ahiam of Jezreel. Michal's love story with David appears to have ended, the husband of her dreams gone from the palace, collecting other wives, and no prospect of their reunion because her father had married her off to someone else. Likely none of us have experienced what it is like to be the daughter of the king married to someone vying to become the future king. But many of us do know what it is like to experience tension between the family we were born into and the family we establish. Conflict between father-in-laws and son-in-laws is as old as human history. Fathers want to protect their daughters, and they often regard outsiders with suspicion, hopefully because they want the best for their child, not because they are murderous connivers like Saul. How many of us have made some of the same emotional choices Michal did? She did not invite conflict with her father. She did not defy him. She did not say, I love David and there's nothing you can do about it. She was careful not to antagonize her father. In Michal's case, that was because her father could have had her put to death for such defiance. In our own lives, being estranged from our family can feel like a death. Often it is the shrewder choice to avoid antagonizing anyone, and for women it is something many of us are taught from a young age. It is often assumed our role is to make peace in a family, to make sure everyone is getting along. At its best, that can be a beautiful affirmation of the vocation of womanhood. At its worst, the expectation can place an unfair emotional burden that means we end up internalizing everyone's conflict. Michal tried to have it both ways, but it's hard to see what other option she had. If she had chose David, she would have had to flee with him. There would have been no one to divert the soldiers and give David those crucial hours in which to make his escape. David might have been caught and killed, but if she had chosen Saul, it likely would have meant David's death. The only way Michal could maintain her loyalty to her husband was by appearing to be loyal to her father. It seems she made the best of an impossible situation. As life unfolds, we sometimes find ourselves with circumstances that defy a simple answer. That is when I place myself at God's feet, not only to cast my cares on him as he instructs us to do in 1 Peter 5:7, but also because he is the ultimate source of wisdom. If any of you who lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. James 1:5. When we're caught between people we love, prayer and heavenly wisdom are 2 of our best tools. No one wants to be in these situations, but they do arise. Seek the Lord's guidance, and He will be faithful to guide you through the life's most challenging decisions. I also often turn to the more mature Christians, people with life experience and a track record of being trustworthy. Their insights can offer valuable advice when you must desperately need it. No longer a daughter. If Michal's heart wasn't already broken after being used by her father and essentially abandoned by David, she was about to face an even more bitter twist. Saul was killed in a disastrous defeat. His son Ishbosheth ascended to the throne, propped up by Saul's cousin and General Abner. But then David finally caught a break. Abner defected to David, and he agreed to swing the war in David's favor. For Abner to prove his intentions, David asked one thing of the general. Good, said David, I will make an agreement with you, but I demand one thing of you. Do not come into my presence unless you bring Michal, daughter of Saul, when you come to see me. Then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, son of Saul, demanding, Give me my wife Michal, whom I betrothed to myself for the price of 100 Philistine foreskins. 2 Samuel 3:13-14. David's request was a shrewd one. If Abner was going to defect, he needed to show David that he meant it. He needed to show David that even if he wanted to, he could not go back to Ishbosheth. What would be one thing that would prove that? Taking Michal, Saul's possession, right under his son's nose and leading her back to David. Michal was clearly the emotional battleground on which the battle between David and Saul was fought. In the list of Saul's unjust actions, this shows us that maybe it was taking Michal away from him and rankled David the most. The stage seems set for a romantic and loving reunion between David and Michal, but what happened was far more disturbing than that. So Ishbosheth gave orders and had her taken away from her husband Paltiel, son of Laish. Her husband, however, went with her, weeping behind her all the way to Barum. Then Abner said to him, Go back home. So he went back. 2 Samuel 3:15-16. I'm going to leave it off right there, and I will see you guys in part 4 of this chapter in another video. Bye!